Hellcat.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Matt Chats. I know it's a long awaited. We had some scheduling conflicts. I had a little R&R for vacation, but what better way to come back from all of that with bringing on John Moore. You may know him as the Collaborator, but he is from Bigtincan, and he's here today to talk to us about how the product team and enablement can actually go hand in hand together. John, how's it going, my man?
Hey, great, Matt, and I'm so excited to be here, and I'm super excited you're doing this whole series. Every single one I've watched to date, but two of them, I think. I'm losing track of all these time, but they've been fantastic, and I love them. So excited to be able to join you on this.
Awesome. Yeah, John, for those of you that don't know, my very first and only enablement episode was with John on his. So what better way to reciprocate? I think John owes me a little bit on that one, but it's great. I love doing these. John, I think you helped inspire and light a fire underneath me. So I appreciate it, dude, very much.
Good. For people that don't know it, Matt's really smart. So I'm glad I could light a little bit of a fire. It certainly wasn't a fire lit unto myself. Others helped. But I'm glad I could play a small role in that, Matt.
Thanks, John. I appreciate that. So enough about me. I'm sure John could probably go on a little bit. But John, let's talk about you. Tell me a little bit about your background, you know, where you've been, what you've done, kind of who you are, and kind of everything all around.
I've had such a unusual career path compared to many in the field, in the sense that I actually graduated from college 30 odd years ago at Boston University here in Boston as an electrical engineer. And my very first job out of school was actually in quality assurance and software development after that. And I took the first 10, 15 years of my career and really grew in the technical path. Product team and playing sort of a 6-player role everywhere I went. I did a lot of startups after my first job, which was at Lotus Development and then IBM. After that, I did a lot of startups, and I always had the opportunity to play 6-player type role. So I ran support, I've done marketing, I've done product management, I've done, like I said, the engineering and QA roles, I've done sales, I've done enablement, revenue enablement, I've done, and I've reached the point in my career where I've really accepted the following: I'm just not that good at anything. So I keep doing new things because I'm hoping if I get broad enough and not just at the waistline, that I'll be valuable to some company someday. So for me, it's been a hell of a ride, Matt, to be honest with you. But it's given me the opportunity, in all seriousness, to really appreciate the various roles in the business, both from the back end, from the engineering, support, and those perspectives, all the way through the front end, you know, the sales, the marketing, and all that other stuff that makes the product and the business great. So I have that unique position, which I really love and appreciate, having that sort of whole picture viewpoint.
Yeah, no, I actually had no idea about your background. That is insane. I appreciate it. It's always good to get an enablement perspective with people from many different backgrounds. I think that's the cool thing about enablement is you don't have to be in sales. You don't have to be in support or customer success or marketing.
I agree. I think it helps if you've got that sales background. And I learned a lot from my selling experience. I was pretty good at it, but not a rock star. Never going to claim to be a rock star, but I went through living on quota enough to know that, okay, I could make ends meet, but I also would rather live a little bit differently. So
yeah,
perspective as well. So I think it all helps.
Yeah, that's totally true. So, John, just as we talked about today, we want to make sure that we're bridging that gap from a product perspective to enablement. So in your aspects and your journey through your transition of life, pretty much.
Yeah.
Talk about how you currently worked or have worked with a product, from a product team perspective, with an enablement squad as well.
Well, I'll answer that. I won't take too much time, but I'll say, you know, sort of historically, when I came up through the engineering ranks and did product management as well as one of those steps along my journey, my interesting journey, you know, at that point in time, I thought the sales team was good, but I always felt like, geez, they just don't listen. I had an appreciation for the fact that their job was more complex than I wanted to think of it. But when I was initially in the product management role, there was always this thinking that, geez, we produced this great documentation, this great information, and they're just not getting it. The reality was we were overwhelming them by giving them all this great volume of information and stuff that no person in their right mind should have to digest. In my current roles from an enablement perspective, and even since that point, I really tried to focus the conversation with the product team around what does the sales team need. So don't tell me don't share with me the 37 pages about how to use this feature. Explain to me why it would help solve a customer problem, the customer problem it's going to help solve. What are the typical things that the competition is doing to solve these same sorts of problems? Why are we better? Why are we different? Sort of answer those key questions that a seller really cares about, because that's what the person they're talking to is going to care about. From an enablement perspective, I help support sales, but I also help support customer success. And the reason I mentioned that too, Matt, is when I work with a product team, there's really sort of different levels of understanding that's needed.
Yep.
And even just between SDRs and AEs, the inside guys and the outside women. I just tried to do the thing with the two sexes and it sounded stupid. So. Yeah. But men and women all around. But really just trying to make sure that what we position to them, we take the whole thing and we act like a translation organization in a sense, pulling it down to just the bare minimum that each functional role needs to be successful. So that's really how we try to focus and work with the product team today. We give them templates on, hey, share with us the information in this way so that we can consume it and use it. And the thing that we do, and we're doing more and more of, that I just want to mention, Matt, if it's okay, is we also try to play that role and apply that filter when it goes to the customers too. And we're not doing great at it yet. I mean, I'll be blunt. I think there's a lot of room for improvement. We're building that relationship internally here at Bigtincan to try to apply that same level of filtering to the customer themselves, just so we provide the right level of quality and insight that they need to be successful. So it's really about being a filter, though, a translator of sorts.
I love that. That's huge. So with that being that filter and the translator of the whole, basically the org, essentially, to product to sales to customers, what would be described like a gold medal moment or your mountaintop success part? How would you describe how you worked from start to finish with your product team?
One of the things at Bigtincan that we do a lot is and it's no secret, we're a public company, but I want to be careful what I say, but we grow by acquisition. So we have a great customer base, we continue to sell more, but we acquire companies fairly frequently for a company our size. So one of the companies we acquired a couple of years ago was at the time called Zunos, and it's a sales enablement learning and training and coaching tool. Now, as you can imagine, anytime you bring in a brand new company, a brand new product set, the level of information you have to start worrying about understanding yourself, translating out to the internal teams and to the customer base is phenomenally large. And one of the things that we were able to do really well was, and it certainly wasn't all on enablement, but we played our role in it, and it was an important role, was trying to, again, be that bridge between the teams to say, okay, here's what this product is that we just bought. Here's how you think about it. Again, positioning it and translating it into terms that the sellers could understand. And because of the way that we and the entire company worked through the acquisition, we were able to not lose customers, frankly. One thing you don't want to do when you buy a company is lose the existing customer base. You don't want to cause churn. So we did a really good job of arming our customer success team, our support team, to make sure they were successful in working together, but then also arming our sellers so they could go out and really start selling this pretty quickly. I considered it a huge success. I think they were up and selling the product in a couple of months. I bet we could do it a heck of a lot better. We bought additional companies since then, each with different degrees of complexity in terms of their product set. But my goal is to just keep getting better and better at that. So when we buy the next company, which I'm sure will happen at some point, we can both save the customers, reduce churn,
Right.
provide them a logical understanding of who and what we are overall, but also arm the sales team quickly to continue those conversations so everybody continues to win in the process. And that to me is one of those golden moments, though, really trying to quickly translate that for the sales team to get them successful and capable out of the gate pretty quickly.
Yeah, that's huge. Anytime an acquisition is happening, I mean, there's always so much complexity, especially for a sales team. Just
Oh my word, yes.
everybody gets eager to sell the new product or to see exactly what it is and test it out and all that stuff. So I 100% agree that that's huge.
Yeah,
Especially,
you're so right, Matt. It's such an interesting experience, and we've now done, I think, 4 acquisitions. Maybe it's 5. I lose track, but each one we get better at it. But it's really about trying to build the process set to support doing this in some sort of repeatable model with a full understanding that each company has unique people with unique perspectives they need to take into account, and they're going to react differently to it all. So you have to bring in that human sensitive side as well, because you're not working with data on the internet. You're working with real people.
right. That's awesome. That's a great perspective. I don't think that's anything that's ever been touched on yet as far as like an acquisition standpoint. So that's huge. I love that. It's something that I know from enablement perspectives we deal with on a daily basis. Most of us have probably had at least some form of acquisition at one point
Yeah.
in our companies. So that's huge. I appreciate that, John. I'm gonna flip the script on you though. So we did
Oh
have
crap!
that gold medal moment. Let's
All
talk
right.
about the time that we're like, oh man, that's my shame moment. What is the time where we felt like maybe we've dropped the ball, where we could have done better, and it was more of that learning momentum for us, going into the next.
Honestly, so many times. I mean, look, as much as we'd all like to think that most of us recognize that we're human and that we mess up and we don't get it perfect the first time.
Right.
And nobody should ever think just because you post a lot on LinkedIn or Twitter that you're super smart and get everything right every time, because that's not the truth. I'll give an acquisition example where I think, where I know it has not been a golden moment. I'm not even sure I want to give it a bronze moment. When we first started acquiring companies, we didn't know what the heck we were doing. And I mean, from an enablement perspective, our financial team, our acquisitions team, smart, great people. But understanding the fact that all of a sudden we need to take this entire product set and understanding how to think about translating that down to the sellers so that they could go quickly and not lose momentum. One of our earliest acquisitions, we did an okay job with our customer retention, but nothing I'm proud of. We really didn't help arm the customer success team with here's why this is better for you. Here's a logical way of thinking about it, or at least the way we want you to be thinking about it in terms of how we can help you and all that. And we really fell down from an enablement perspective in understanding all of the pieces we needed to provide out to our sellers and our customer success team. Mm-hmm. And it certainly resulted in churn beyond what I felt personally was acceptable, and uptake in sales where there was a logical product fit that was very slow to take off. And I'm not saying we did anything horribly wrong, but there was a lot of things we simply didn't do fast enough or with enough forethought and insight that you could be anything other than that was a good learning moment. The good thing about it is we all fail all the time. If we take that as an opportunity to learn from it and do better each and every time, then it's a win overall. And that's really what it's been for us, is seeking to just continuously get better and better and better. And hopefully that helps. I mean,
yeah.
And the constant moments of failure, I accept that I fail many, many times. It just means you're trying, but I don't want to fail the same way 37 times in a row.
Yeah, no, I think that's huge. That's exactly, I know when you interviewed me, like that was my biggest thing, is learn your failures and then learn from them.
And that's, and one more plug for Matt. That's one of the things that really impressed me, Matt, was you got that. And a lot of people look at failure as a negative, as much as we try to educate ourselves that it's not. And there's so many reasons for that, and I won't bore you with the psychology of it all, but it's hard as a grown-up to start to accept that failure is good. And you do, and I appreciate that.
Hey, no, I love that. So you touched on a moment of you have like a template that you use with your product team on they're releasing something. How does that translate down to you? So how do you take that template and plan your releases from product team perspective to an enablement team as well?
It's another area where I'll say we're a work in progress here, and I'll share what we're doing here because that's the most recent. We work closely with our product management team in a number of ways, and we're trying to improve it every single day. But it's about sitting down with them and getting insight into what they're planning to build out for each release. Now, we work in a very agile model for our development processes, and from our sales enablement perspective too. Big believer in enablement and an agile approach. And I think when you and I chatted, you were using the same process.
Yep.
But what we try to do is understand what they're planning to put out. The reason I mentioned agile, though, is a lot of times you'll see that what they plan to put out at the beginning of their sprint, their schedule, isn't what shows up at the end of the day. And that's okay, because sometimes things take longer than you planned. You want to get the quality right and all of that. So it forces us to think broadly in terms of, oh, if all of these capabilities are coming out, how do we need to start thinking about them in terms of how's it a differentiator? How does it help us sell? How does it help customers solve problems? Or is it simply a UI update that makes life better for people? And that's okay too. But it's about trying to have those earlier conversations. Now, I'm painting the picture like it's solved. It's not. Today's reality is we often have those conversations late in the sprint cycle.
Yeah.
Hey, John, we're about to release this Sunday, and it's Thursday. Crap.
Yeah.
And that's okay. It's better than it used to be where, to be honest with you, you go back a year ago, it was, oh yeah, we released that last week. Didn't we tell you?
Yeah.
And everybody's going, crap, I don't know what it is, including our support team, our sellers, and everybody. But we've gotten a lot better. And it's about trying to, I'm going to say push, but I mean it in a gentle way. It's trying to push those conversations earlier and earlier. So we built awareness around it. We try to have it presented to the sales team, because what we do is we invite the product managers to come in and share the information with the product team. You guys just built this great product. Come in, do a demo, explain to us the why in sales terms this matters, but show it off too and get a little bit of a round of applause while you're doing it. So work in progress though. What we're trying to build towards, if it's helpful, Matt, to you or people listening, is really to the point where, and we're not there yet, where we get started at sprint kickoff. When they start their sprint planning process, we would like to be there in the room, listening to what they're planning to do and thinking about it. And we just haven't reached that point yet, but in time, that's where we want to get to.
Yeah. I think you read ahead on the entire script, but next question for you right then and there, like you had the magic wand, no limitations. What would you do to strengthen that relationship between the product team and your enablement? I know you've even said, you just started out saying joining sprint planning. Like that's huge too already.
That would be huge. One of the challenges that we have, and challenges should never be used for excuses, is we are an extremely geographically dispersed organization. We have people in the US, in Scotland, in Israel, in Australia, the Philippines, and I feel like I'm missing places. But so we're we're a virtual workforce to begin with. We're a very remote working type style of workforce. So we use Slack like does today, email, Zoom meetings. But some of our challenges that other organizations have too are simply time shifts. Right now we're 14 hours off from our teams working in Australia. And that's okay. It just means somebody needs to get up earlier, stay up later. And, so one of the magic wands would be, hey, in my fantasy world, I'd love it if we were all sitting in the exact same location, but that's not a reality. So what we're trying to work towards, and it takes time, but we're progressing each and every month, I would say, is getting involved in those sprint planning meetings, moving our schedule, being very flexible in our schedule to be awake a little later. And, they already do these meetings over Zoom. Take the time to jump in and listen. Be respectful, listen and learn, and don't interrupt the meetings, because it's really about the engineers planning out what they're going to do. And then again, if I had that magic wand, being part of the sprint planning and making sure that as the sprint's going along, they do their daily stand-ups, trying to understand how progress is coming along. Again, not to push on them, not to interrupt them at all, but just to better plan how things are changing as the time goes along. And that's a magic wand that I'm waving, and we'll get there eventually.
Yeah.
But it's going to take time. And the reality is with enablement, and we all know this, nothing happens overnight. There's so many different relationships we're all trying to build. There's so many different processes we want to get plugged into to better help the business. We can only move so fast in each of them, or we'd have to be a team of 50, which just isn't going to happen for most enablement organizations.
Right.
So it's slow and steady progress.
Good. Yeah, no, that's totally true. I know at our company, we work on a release team. We have representatives for release teams and stuff like that for different products. So
Yeah,
that's a huge monumental moment. Having a stakeholder involved when you can, or getting that tidbits of information to progress you further, is truly a huge heads up and a big help, especially as you're starting to plan.
Huge. And in one of my past roles in a past company, we did do that. We tried to invite everybody in and around the business to set in and simply listen. If you wanted to join, the meetings were publicly announced, but we were also physically, essentially, most of us were in the same office location. Mm-hmm. So I'd say, hey, every Monday at 10 a.m., welcome to come by and listen in. So, but we're working to get there, and we will get there.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Any other lessons that you might have learned that you simply want to share while working with a product team? I know we've covered a ton today, so
I think it's important. Additional? I know, Matt, the problem with me, and you know this now, I'll talk forever, and you need to shut me up. But I'm going to say the following. I don't care if you're talking about working with sales, with marketing, customer success, engineering, product, whoever. The most important thing for an enablement team to recognize is that for many of the teams you want to work with, because you can help, you can easily be perceived as a distraction. So what you need to do, I need to do it, Matt needs to do it, we all need to do it, is really lead from a perspective of humbly trying to help and listen a lot more than you speak. Because when it comes to the engineering team and our product team, for example, those people are just working so hard. They've got their deadlines. I've been in their shoes. I know how painful and scary those deadlines can be. I remember being up at 3 a.m. trying to compile code and being like, but I made no changes and it's not working. They're stressed. So I really seek to try to find moments you here. I see you gave us this great information on this new feature. Would it be helpful for you if I try to make it into an executive summary that I could share with the sales team? And most of the time, if you're saying, here's how I can help you, can I help you? They may push you off at the beginning, but usually they're going to start to see, hey, you're really here just to help. And they're going to start taking you up on the opportunities. As you get closer, as you build trust, it's going to happen. You just need to be patient and persistent as you move forward.
Yeah, no, that's 100% true. I know of my experience. I've had to encounter that as well. So that's definitely.
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely, man.
John, I cannot thank you enough. You, of course, the collaborator, collaborating all Unities under one umbrella through Enablement. Great. Is there anything last minute that you want to drop before we sign off today?
What I'm saying is follow Matt. Follow Matt everywhere. He's really good. He's really smart. That's what I want to say. I'm a loudmouth. I'm going to keep raising my opinions out there. And certainly what I would share with everybody, though, is I like to share my opinions, and I like to do it because I believe we need to raise up our collective community of practitioners. We've struggled for 20 plus years at Enablement, and we need to come together to share best practices, to share insights, and we need to raise each other up, not tear each other down. So I'm going to continue going out there and talking to smart people like you, Matt, to share what you're doing and the best practices. And I want to do that with everybody and anybody I can, because none of us know everything. So let's just share and raise each other up. And that's my message.
I appreciate that. Guys, if you have not followed or connected with the Collaborator, yes, that's how he goes by on LinkedIn. Check it out. He's got tons of great content. I know every single day I get tons of notifications, which are great nuggets of information to grasp here or there. And in some way, form, no matter what project I'm working on, it somehow pertains to each and every one of them. So, John, I can't thank you enough. Again, follow the Collaborator on LinkedIn. Next week on Matt Chats, I am bringing on another person from Huddle, Trey Boyer, who is our VP of Competitive Sales. He actually reached out and wanted to do a different perspective on sales as well, too. So we've had Adam from Gong as a sales rep perspective, but now let's jump to the VP level and let's see what they want to do to collaborate and how do we bridge that gap from a VP point of view with sales to enablement as well. So stay tuned next week. Trey Boyer as well. John, thanks again. Can't thank you enough, my man.
Thank you, Matt. I appreciate you. Take care.
Thanks.